There's a big misconception when it comes to hydration that electrolytes aren't that important and they're just salt, and that if you just put salt in your food that you're going to be completely fine and you don't need to ever have any type of hydration on the go. And on one hand, I understand what they mean, because it is true that when you sweat, you predominantly lose sodium. So if you just salt your food, then you'll be fine. But if it worked out that way and we could just salt our food, which we already do, and that would prevent us from having any cramps when we would go work out, then we would just do it, right? And electrolytes would not be a thing. But if electrolytes were started in 1965 by Gatorade, because the Florida Gators, the football team, was having a lot of issues with poor performance, with cramping, with low energy, playing in the Florida sun, then, obviously, hydration has some merit. Supplementing hydration has some merits, right? And the thing is that everyone sweats differently. Everyone has different diets. And the world is not the same as it was many years ago. Our soil doesn't contain the same amount of minerals and nutrients that it used to because of our poor farming practices. So therefore our foods don't have the same level of vitamins and minerals as they used to. Also, our water has been impacted. We don't have as fresh, clean water that's always accessible with the right amount of minerals, the right amount of electrolytes that they used to have. So as things change, we have to adapt. And this is one of the reasons why electrolytes are popular. The other thing you have to think about is that, electrolytes are essentially salt, potassium, some magnesium, depending on the brand, and basically a flavor of fruit, typically, to make it replicate what you would have if you were to eat the whole food. If I wanted to find a food that was high in electrolytes, I would look for fruits, obviously, like bananas, oranges, watermelon, cantaloupe. These things have electrolytes, mostly higher in potassium and then some vitamins like vitamin C and water. And if you added salt, some fresh, unrefined salt to watermelon, or ate it with a little bit with a banana or with honeydew or any of these fruits, then you would have practically a complete electrolyte. But the reality is that if you are playing a game or you're riding a bike, you're not going to be carrying chopped up watermelon. You're not going to be having a banana with you all the time because of efficiency, because of convenience, because of speed. You're not going to try to down a whole banana in the middle of a bike ride. Not that you couldn't, but it wouldn't be as efficient. And even if you did down a banana or an orange in the middle of a bike ride or doing a run, which, let's be real, no one's doing this, but even if you did, you would still need some water to make sure you have the right amount of water in your system when you are hydrating yourself with a whole source of electrolytes. So that's the reason why electrolytes are so popular. And then you also have to take into account that there's a difference between, complex carbs and simple carbs, which play a big role when it comes to performance. And when it comes to performance, it's more than great to include complex carbohydrates in your diet, but when it comes to performance, especially in short-term sessions or games, you're going to need a simple carbohydrate because you need to absorb it quickly. You can't afford to bring a potato, you know, or oatmeal to, in the middle of a game or a sport activity and be eating that potato because even though it's high in potassium, because it's just not something your body's going to be able to absorb quickly. So you would need something like a banana or a watermelon or orange or whatever. But at the same time, you're not going to be carrying those things around. And with people traveling, with people being in different environments, it's not always easy to have a banana or just some kind of fruit laying around where you're going to put it in your bag. And if it's hot outside, you're just going to let it sit there. Okay, yeah, you could grab a cooler, but who wants to haul around a cooler with a bunch of fruit and salt? And yeah, you could carry a salt shaker around with you, but who wants to do that? So these are why electrolytes are utilized, and this is why electrolytes can be very beneficial. And it's not to say that everyone needs to use electrolytes, because I do believe there is a little bit of a push here for things that sometimes we don't need. And I will agree that electrolytes are not needed by everyone. You don't need to wake up in the morning and automatically assume electrolytes. And this is where I have some criticism of the supplement industry, especially when it comes to hydration. Because some brands are trying to market it as it's something that everyone needs to consume every day, all the time, and that's simply not true. But to say that electrolytes are only something you need if you're training for 4 hours or more is just not true, because if you've ever done anything that is demanding, that's physical, it could be hiking, and the higher you go in higher elevation, the more you're sweating, the more you're losing electrolytes. It might be beneficial to have some electrolytes for you. If you're traveling and you're going from a place that is flat, like for example where I'm from originally, which is Chicago, which is basically no elevation, and then you're going to a place like Denver, Colorado, where you're a mile above sea level and you're automatically going to high elevation, it can be very important to make sure that you have some kind of electrolytes that you can conveniently have with you. So this idea that electrolytes are a scam or no one needs them is just not true. Yes, can you get it from foods? Absolutely, you can get it from foods. But is it always practical? Is it always convenient? The answer is no. Now, instead of concerning so much about what is in the electrolytes, which is important, like sodium, potassium, magnesium is not so much important, but it's good to have. We need to really focus on the quality of these ingredients. It's one thing to have an ingredient or have some mineral or vitamin in a supplement, but it's another thing to actually pay attention to the quality of these things. And this is the biggest problem with the American diet and when it comes to fitness nutrition in America or the Western world, is that we are so focused on these things like macros, macronutrients, and calories and carbohydrates that we tend not to think about the quality of these things. So if something has sodium in it, great, because your body loses sodium when you sweat. But more importantly, what kind of sodium is in there? Is it unrefined? Does it have trace minerals? And what's the science behind the hydration in it? Does it have, higher amount of sodium, then potassium, then magnesium? If it has magnesium, is it using real fruit? What are the quality of the ingredients that are in the supplement? That's very, very important. And this is often overlooked. Okay? So I think it's just something to really be aware of. And this goes for any health nutrition supplement. But obviously we're talking about electrolytes here. And I noticed that a lot of the people that will review electrolytes or say that electrolytes are a scam or they're definitely not needed, they typically tend to be people who are just like bodybuilders and people who weightlift. And it's true, for those type of people, they probably really don't need electrolytes all that much, depending on what they're doing, because they're usually pretty carb heavy, which means that they're consuming a good amount of carbohydrates, which is allows them to hold more water and hold more electrolytes in their system. And typically when you're weightlifting, depending on the intensity and the exercise and what you're doing, you're definitely not going to be sweating all that much. So yeah, the general person is not going to need electrolytes. But to say that electrolytes are a scam, but to say that all these other drinks and things that people are consuming is completely fine and not a scam, like, you know, Monster energy drinks and Red Bull and BCAs and all these things, that I'm not saying they're all bad, but it's about the quality, you know? Like, theoretically, no one needs coffee. I mean, you just eat good food and you get enough sleep and you get sunshine, vitamin D. If you get all those things, you don't need coffee. I don't consume coffee. So, do you really need coffee? No. But it's convenient for people, right? It's convenient for people. It can help them get their mental clarity on. It can help them switch their brain on. It can help people, you know, have the effects of not feeling tired. So people use it as a tool. They supplement it. So, but coffee also can deplete the body of electrolytes because it can make you dehydrated because it's a diuretic. But does that mean that coffee is a scam because you technically don't need it? No, it's a tool. And electrolytes are the same way. They are a tool as well. Creatine. You can get creatine from red meat. I don't take creatine. I don't, my body doesn't absorb it well. I always feel like I have it messes with my stomach. And that's even taken it at low doses. Does that mean that creatine is a scam? No, it just means that it's helpful for some people. For some other people, it's not really all that helpful. So we need to really be careful about this. And the other thing that I think is really, really important when it comes to nutrition, especially with supplements, is that you need to pay attention. And I said this earlier, but you have to pay attention to the quality of ingredients. And they will argue and say that citric acid, for example, which is an inorganic acid found naturally in fruits, especially citrus fruits, that's where it gets the name from. They will try to say that citric acid is exactly the same as a synthetic man-made citric acid that is inputted into drinks and foods. It's not the same. It's citric acid, but it's not the same. Your body doesn't absorb it the same way. It's not natural. It's made in the lab. So just to say that, oh, because this fruit has citric acid, the citric acid that we're putting in the supplement is the same thing. No, it's not the same thing. It's different. So we really need to be careful, and we need to make sure that we're reading ingredients and we're looking at the science behind things rather than just saying, oh, well, they both have the same ingredient. Really? But what kind? Like, how was it made? Where is the ingredient coming from? Is it naturally occurring, or is it actually something that was made in the lab? And I'm not saying that all synthetic vitamins and things and additives are bad, but you can't put them apples to apples to real food, because nothing will replace real food. You cannot make a protein powder and say that it's just as good as eating a steak, because it's not. It still can be beneficial, can still help you repair and build muscle, but it's not the same as eating a real steak. So supplements are meant to do exactly what they are called, to supplement. They're not designed as a replacement. As much as I think that there's some electrolyte brands out there not necessarily pushing the right message, I haven't seen any electrolyte brand say that this is going to replace your sodium. The goal isn't to replace your intake of sodium for the whole day. The goal is to use the sodium and potassium, if it's dosed correctly, to make sure you get the most out of your workouts, get the most out of your performance. And then you also have to remember that certain people are going to be on certain diets, like ketogenic diets or very low carb diets. And based on their composition, their biology, their sweat rate, they're going to lose sodium at different rates than other people would. Now, do I think, for example, 1,000 milligrams of sodium is quite high for an average person to be consuming an electrolyte? Yes, I think it is. But if that person is on a low carb or a very low carb or ketogenic diet, it may be beneficial depending on what kind of sport activity they're doing and how much they sweat. So just keep these in mind before you listen and take every word that these fitness influencers or bodybuilders or people on the internet start saying, that this is a scam and this isn't a scam, or this is a scam and this isn't a scam, because it's not always black and white. And just remember, supplements are a tool. They never will replace real whole food. So if you found any value from this video, please give it a like, subscribe, share it with others, and we'll see you in the next one.